Hello, listeners. Welcome to my channel, The Magic of Words. So, today we are going to start with our new book that is Believe in Yourself. This book is written by Dr. Joseph Murphy, and this book contains a total of 3 chapters. Today, we are going to start with our first chapter, but before starting, don't forget to press the bell icon and do subscribe to my channel. Chapter 1 Make Your Dreams Come True. Joseph in the Bible means disciplined or controlled imagination. It is one of the primal faculties of mind. It has the power to project and clothe your ideas, giving them visibility on the screen of space. Israel loved Joseph. Israel is a spiritually awakened man who knows the power of controlled imagination. It is called the son of his old age. Son means expression, old age infers wisdom and knowledge of the laws of mind. When you become familiar with the power of imagination, you will call it the son of your old age. Age is not the flight of years, it is really the dawn of wisdom and divine knowledge in you. Imagination is the mighty instrument used by great scientists, artists, physicists, inventors, architects, and mystics. When the world said it is impossible, it can't be done, the man with imagination said it is done. Through your imagination, you can also penetrate the depths of reality to reveal the secrets of nature. A great industrialist told me one time how he started in a small store. He said that I used to dream. Joseph was a dreamer of a large corporation with branches all over the country. He added that regularly, systematically, he pictured in his mind the giant buildings, offices, factories, and stores, knowing that through the alchemy of the mind, he could weave the fabric out of which his dreams would be clothed. He prospered, began to attract to himself by universal law of attraction the ideas, personal, friends, money, just everything needed for the emergence of his ideal. He truly exercised and cultivated his imagination. Now he lived with these mental patterns in his mind until imagination clothed them in form. I particularly liked one comment that he made as follows: It is just as easy to imagine yourself successful as it is to imagine failure, but far more interesting. Joseph is a dreamer of dreams. This means he has visions, images, and ideals in his mind and knows that there is a creative power that responds to his mental pictures. The mental images we hold are developed in feeling. It is wisely said that all our senses are modifications of the one sense feeling. Thomas Sherwood, a teacher of mental science, says, feeling is the law and the law is the feeling. Feeling is the fountainhead of power. We must charge our mental pictures with feeling in order to get results. We are told Joseph dreamed a dream. When he told it to his family, they hated him. Perhaps as you read this, you have a dream, an ideal, a plan, or purpose that you would like to accomplish. To hate is to reject in Bible language. The thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and opinions in your mind are the brethren that challenge you. Belittle your dreams and say to you, you can't, it is impossible, forget it. Perhaps other thoughts come into your mind which scoff at your plan or ambition. You discover that there is a quarrel in your mind with your own society. Opposition sets in. The way to handle the opposition in your mind is to detach your attention from evidence of only what you can see and hear, that is, the appearance of things. You need to begin to think clearly and with interest about your goal or objective. When your mind is engaged on your goal or objective, you are using the creative law of mind. It will come to pass. Lo, my sheaf arose and also stood upright, and behold, your sheaves stood around about and made obeisance to my sheaf. Lift your ideal or desire up in consciousness, exalt it, commit yourself wholeheartedly to it. Praise it, give your attention, love and devotion to your ideal, and as you continue to do so, all the fearful thoughts will make obeisance to your exalted state of mind. That is, they will lose their power and disappear from the mind. Through your faculty to imagine the end result, you have control over any circumstance or condition. If you wish to bring about the realization of any wish, desire, or idea, form a mental picture of fulfillment in your mind. Constantly imagine the reality of your desire. In this way, you will actually compel it into being. What you imagine as true already exists in the next dimension of your mind. If you remain faithful to your ideal, it will one day objectify itself. The master architect within you will project on the screen of visibility what you impress on your mind. Joseph, imagination, wears a coat of many colors. A coat is the Bible, is a psychological covering. Your psychological garments are the mental attitudes, moods, and feelings you entertain. The coat of many colors represents the many facets of the diamond or your capacity to clothe any idea into reality. You can imagine your friend who is poor living in the lap of luxury. You can see his face light up with joy, see his expression change with a broad smile across his lips. You can hear him tell you what you want to hear. You can see him exactly as you wish to see him. That is, he is radiant, happy, prosperous, as also successful. Your imagination is the coat of many colors. It can clothe and objectify any idea or desire. You can imagine abundance where lack is, peace where discord is, as well as health where there is sickness. His brethren said to him, "Shalt thou indeed reign over us?" Imagination is the first faculty. It takes precedence all over the other powers or elements of the consciousness. You have 12 faculties or brethren, but your imagination, when disciplined, enables you to collapse time and space and rise above all limitations. When you keep your imagination busy with noble, godlike concepts and ideas, you will find that it is the most effective of all faculties in your ongoing spiritual quest. The phrase, Joseph is sold into Egypt, means that your concept or desire must be subjectively understood first before it becomes objectified. Every concept must go down into Egypt, meaning into the subjective space where the birth of ideas takes place. Out of Egypt have I called my son. Joseph is the commander of Egypt. This tells you that imagination controls the whole conceptive realm. Whatever prison you may be in, whether it is the prison of fear, sickness, lack, or limitation of any kind, remember that Joseph is the commander in prison who can deliver you. You can imagine your freedom and continue to do so until it is subjectively understood. Then, after gestation, in the darkness, the manifestation comes. Your prayer is answered. Consider for a moment a distinguished, talented architect who can build a beautiful, modern 20th century city in his mind, complete with superhighways, swimming pools, aquariums, parks, and so on. He can construct in his mind the most beautiful palace the eye has ever seen. He can see the building in its entirely completed, erected, before he ever gives his plan to the builders. Where was the building? It was in his imagination. With your imagination, you can actually hear the invisible voice of your mother, even though she lives 10,000 miles from here. You can also see her clearly, quite as vividly as if she were present. This is the wonderful power you possess. You can develop and cultivate this power to become successful and prosperous. Haven't you heard the sales manager say, "I have to let John go because his attitude is wrong"? The business world knows the importance of right attitude. I remember many years ago have printed a small article on reincarnation. These pamphlets were on display on a book counter of a church where I lectured. In the beginning, very few of them were sold because the salesgirl was violently opposed to its contents. I explained the biblical meaning of reincarnation to her, the origin of the story as well as what it was all about. She understood the concepts of the drama and became enthusiastic about the booklets. They were all sold before my lecture series was completed. This was an instance of the importance of the right mental attitude. Your mental attitude means your mental reaction to people, circumstances, condition, and objects in space. What is your relationship with your co-workers? Are you friendly with people, with animals, and with the universe in general? Do you think the universe is hostile or that the world owes you a living? In short, what is your attitude? The emotional reaction of the above mentioned girl was one of the deep seated prejudice. That was the wrong attitude in selling books. She was based towards the book and the writer. You can develop the right mental attitude when you realize that nothing externally can upset you or hurt you without your mental consent. You are the only thinker in your world. Consequently, nothing can move you to anger, grief, or sorrow without your mental consent. The suggestions that come to you from the outside have no power whatsoever except that you permit them to move you in thought negatively. Realize that you are the master of your thought world. Emotions follow thoughts. Hence, you are the supreme in your own orbit. Do you permit others to influence you? Do you allow the headlines in the newspapers, the gossip, or the criticism of others to upset you or bring about mental depression? If you do, you must admit that you are the cause of your own mood. You created your emotional reaction. Your attitude is wrong. Do you imagine evil of others? If you do, notice the emotion generated in your deeper self. It's negative and destructive to your health and prosperity. Circumstances can affect you only as you permit them. You can voluntarily and definitely change your attitude towards life and all things. You can become master of your fate and captain of your soul, subconscious mind. Through disciplined, directed, as well as controlled imagination, you can dominate and master your emotions and mental attitude in general. If you imagine, for example, that another person is mean, dishonest, and jealous, notice the emotion you evoked within yourself. Now reverse the situation. Begin to imagine the same person as honest, sincere, loving, and also kind. Note the reaction if it calls forth in you. Are you not, therefore, master of your attitudes? In reality, the truth of the whole matter is that it is your real concept of God that determines your whole attitude towards life in general. Your dominant idea about God is your idea of life. For God is life. If you have the dominant idea or attitude that God is a spiritual power within you, responsive to your thought, and that therefore, since your habitual thinking is constructive and harmonious, this power is guiding and prospering you in all ways. This dominant attitude will color everything. You will be looking at the world through the positive, affirmative attitude of mind. Your outlook will be positive, plus you will have a joyous expectancy of only the best. Many people have a gloomy, despondent outlook on life. They are sore, cynical, as well as cantankerous. This is due to the dominant negative mental attitude that directs their reaction to everything. A young boy of 16 going to high school said to me, I am getting very poor grades. My memory is failing. I don't know what's the matter. The only thing wrong was his attitude. He adopted a new mental attitude by realizing how important his studies were in gaining entrance, grades to college, in order to become a lawyer. He began to pray scientifically, which is one of the quickest ways to change the mentality. In scientific prayer, we deal with the people that responds to thought. This young man realized that there was a spiritual power within him. Actually, that it was the only cause and power. Furthermore, he began to claim that his memory was perfect and that infinite intelligence constantly revealed to him everything he needed to know at all times, everywhere. He began to radiate love and goodwill to the teachers and fellow students. This young man is now enjoying a greater freedom than he had known for several years. He constantly imagines the teachers and his mother congratulating him on straight A's. It is imagining the desired results that have followed this change of attitude towards his studies. We have said previously that all our mental attitudes are conditioned by imagination. If you imagine that it is going to be a black day today, that business is going to be very poor, that it is raining, that no customers will come into your store, that they have no money, and so on. You will experience a result of your negative imagery. One time a man was walking the streets of London when he imagined he saw a snake on the street. Fear caused him to become semi-paralyzed. Then he looked like a snake, but he had the same mental and emotional reactions as if it were a snake. Imagine, whatsoever things are lovely, noble, and of good report, your entire emotional attitude towards life will change. What do you imagine about life? Is it going to be a happy life for you? Or is it one long series of frustrations? Choose ye whom ye will serve. You mold, fashion, and shape your outer world of experience according to the mental images you habitually dwell on. Imagine conditions and circumstances in life that dignify, elevate, please as well as satisfy you. If you imagine that life is cold, cruel, hard, bitter, or that struggle and pain are inevitable, you are making life miserable for yourself. Imagine yourself on the golf course. You are free, relaxed, full of enthusiasm and energy. Your joy is in overcoming all the difficulties presented by the golf course. The thrill is in surmounting all the obstacles. Now let us take this scene. Imagine yourself going into a funeral parlor. Notice the different emotional response brought forward as you picture yourself in each of the above mentioned situations. In the funeral chapel, you can rejoice in the person's new birthday. You can imagine the loved one surrounded by his or her friends in the midst of indescribable beauty and love. You can imagine God's river of peace flooding the minds and hearts of all present. You can actually ascend the heavens of your own mind. Wherever you are, this is the power of your imagination. And he dreamed yet another dream and told it his brethren and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. In ancient symbology, the sun and the moon represent the conscious and subconscious mind. The 11 stars represent the 11 powers in addition to imagination. Here again, the inspired writers are telling you that disciplined imagination takes precedence all over other faculties of the mind and controls the direction of the conscious and subconscious mind. Imagination is first and foremost. It can be scientifically directed. I was examining one of the round towers of Ireland with my father over 50 years ago. He said nothing for 1 more hour but remained passive and receptive, seeming to be in a pensive mood. I asked him what he was meditating on. This is the essence of his answer. He pointed out that it is only by dwelling on the great, wonderful ideas of the world that we grow and expand. He contemplated the age of the stones in the tower. Then his imagination took him back to the quarries where stones were first formed. His imagination unclosed the stones. He saw with the interior eye the structure, the geological information, the composition of the stone, and reduced it to the formless state. Finally, he imagined the oneness of the stones with all stones and with all life. He realized in his divine imagery that it was possible to reconstruct the history of the Irish race from looking at the round tower. Through the imaginative faculty, this teacher was able to see the invisible men living in the tower and to hear his voices. The whole place became alive to him in his imagination. Through his power, he was able to go back in time when there was no round tower there. In his mind, he began to weave a drama of the place. From which stones originated? Who bought them? The purpose of the structure as also the history connected with it. As he said to me, I am able to almost feel the touch and hear the sound of steps that vanished thousands of years ago. The subjective mind permeates all things. It is in all things is a substance from which they are made. The treasure house of eternity is in every stone comprising a building. There is nothing inanimate. All is life in its varied manifestations. The sun and the moon make options to Joseph, imagination. Truly, through your faculty of imagination, you can imagine that the invisible secrets of nature are revealed to you. You will find that you can delve the very depths of consciousness, calling things that be not as stuff they were, and the unseen becomes seen. The other night, I sat in a park to look at the setting sun. Suddenly, I began to think that the sun is like a house in the city of Los Angeles. There is a greater sun behind our sun, so on to infinity. It staggers the imagination and ponder and meditate on the myriads of sun and solar galaxies extending into infinity beyond the Milky Way. This world is only a grain of sand in the infinite seashore. Instead of seeing the parts, let us look at the wholeness, the unity of all things. We are, as a poet said, all parts of our stupendous whole, whose body nature is, and God of soul. It is really out of the imaginative mind of man that all religions are born. Is it not out of the realm of imagination that television, radio, radar, superjets, and all other modern inventions came? Your imagination is the treasure house of infinity, which releases to you all the precious jewels of music, art, poetry, and inventions. You can look at some ancient ruin, an old temple or pyramid, and reconstruct the records of the dead past. In the ruins of an old churchyard, you can also see a modern city, resurrected in all its beauty and glory. You may be in a prison of want, lack, or behind stone bars, but in your imagination you can find an undreamed of mirror of freedom. Remember how Chico, the Parisian saver cleaner, imagined and lived in an paradisical state of mind called the seventh heaven, even though he never saw the light of day. Bunyan, in prison, wrote the great masterpiece, Pilgrim's Progress. Milton, although blind, saw with the interior eye. His imagination made his brain a ball of fire, and he wrote Paradise Lost. In this way, he brought some of the God's paradise to all people wherever. Necessary. Imagination was Milton's spiritual eye, which enabled him to go out about God's business, whereby he annihilated time, space, and matter, and brought forth the truths of the invisible presence and power. A genius is a man who is in rapport with his subconscious mind. He is able to tap this universe reservoir and receive answers to his problems. Thus, he doesn't have to work by the sweat of his brow. In the genius type of mind, the imaginative faculty is developed to a very high degree. All great poets and writers are gifted with a highly developed and cultivated imaginative faculty. I can now see Shakespeare listening to the old stories, fables, and myths of his day. I can also imagine him sitting down listing all these characters in the play in his mind, then clothing them one by one with hair, skin, muscle, and bone, animating them and making them so much alive that we think we are reading about ourselves. Use your imagination and go about your father's business. Your father's business is to let your wisdom, skill, knowledge, and ability come forth and bless others as well as yourself. You are about your father's business. If you are operating a small store and in your imagination you feel you are operating a large store, giving a great measure of service to your fellow creature. If you are a writer of short stories, you can be about your father's business. Create a story in your mind. Teaches something about the golden rule, then pass that story and all its characters through your spiritualized and highly artistic mentality. Your article will be fascinating and intensely interesting to your public. The truth about man is always wonderful and beautiful. When writing a novel or story, we should be sure that we clothe truth in her garment of loveliness and beauty. You could now look at an icon and with your imaginative eye construct a magnificent forest full of rivers, rivulets, and streams. You could people the forest with all kinds of life. Furthermore, you could hang a bow on every cloud. You could look at the desert and cause it to rejoice and blossom to as a rose. Instead of the thorn shell, come up with the fir tree and Instead of the briar shall come up with the martel tree. Men gifted with intuition and imagination find water in the desert and they create cities where formerly other men only saw a desert and a wilderness. An architect of a city sees the buildings and fountains already in operation before he ever digs a well or builds a house. I will make the wilderness a pool of water and the dry land springs of water. Long hours, hard labor, or burning the midnight oil will not produce a Milton, a Shakespeare, of Beethoven. People accomplish great things through quiet moments, imagining that the invisible things from the foundation of the time are clearly visible. You can imagine the indescribable beauty of He who is being expressed on your canvas, and if you are a real artist in love with beauty, great beauty will come forth effortlessly. Moments of great inspiration will come to you. It will have nothing to do with perspiration or hard mental labor. In Greenwich Village, I met a poet who wrote beautiful poems. He had them printed on cards and sold them on Christmas time. Most of these poems were beautiful gems of spiritual love. He said that when he got still, the words would come into his mind accompanied by a lovely scene. Flowers, people, and friends would come clearly into his mind. These images spoke to him. They told him their story, oftentimes the entire poem. Song or lullaby would appear complete and ready in his mind without the slightest effort. His habit was to imagine that he was writing beautiful poems that would stir the hearts of men. Shelley said the poetry was an expression of the imagination. When the poet meditates on love and wishes to write on the love, the invisible intelligence and wisdom within him stirs his mind, casts the spell of God's beauty over him and awakens him to God's eternal love so that his words become clothed with wisdom, truth and beauty. The great musician is within. If it's your business to play music or compose music, be sure that you are on your Father's business. Your Father's business is first of all to recognize God as the great musician. Then meditate, feel, pray to know that the inner music sings or plays through you, the song of God's love. You will play like you have never played before. Every intention of Edison's was first conceived in his imagination. The same was true of Tesla, another great inventor and scientist. I think it was Oliver Wendell Holmes who said that we need three-story spinners who can idealize, imagine as well as predict. I believe it was the capacity to imagine and dream that caused Ford to look forward by to putting the world on wheels. Your capacity to imagine causes you and enables you to remove all barriers of time and space. You can reconstruct the past or contemplate the future thought through your inner eye. No wonder it says in Genesis, Israel loved Joseph more than all his brethren. Imagination, when disciplined, spiritualized, controlled, and directed towards the most exalted and noblest attribute of man. I was in a conversation some years ago with a young chemist who stated that his superiors for years had tried to manufacture a certain German dye and failed. He was given the assignment when he went with him. As he commented, he didn't know that it could not be done and synthesized the compound without any difficulty. They were amazed and wanted to know his secret. His answer was that he imagined he had the answer. Pressed further by his superiors, he said that he could clearly see the letters answer in blazing red color in his mind. He then created a vacuum underneath the letters, knowing that as he imagined this chemical formula underneath the letters, the subconscious would fill it in. The third night, he had a dream in which the complete formula and the technique of making the compound was clearly presented. Joseph is a dreamer and a dreamer of dreams. They conspired against him to slay him, and they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Perhaps as you read these biblical quotations, there are thoughts of fear, doubt, and anxiety conspiring in your own mind to slay or kill that desire, ideal or dreams of yours. You look at conditions or circumstances and fear arises in your mind. Yet there is a desire within you which if realized, would bring you peace and solve the problem. You must be like Joseph and become a practical dreamer. Decide to make your dreams come true. Withdraw and abstract your attention now from appearances of things and from sense evidence. Even though your senses deny what you pray for, affirm that it is true in your heart. Bring your mind back from its wandering after the false gods of fear and doubt to rest in the omnipotence of the spiritual power within you. In the silence and quietude of your own mind, dwell on the fact that there is only one power and one presence. This power and presence is now responding to your thought as guidance, strength, peace, and nourishment for the soul. Give all your mental attention to recognizing the absolute sovereignty of the spiritual power. Knowing that the God power has the answer and is now showing you the way, trust it, believe in it, and walk the earth in the light. Your prayer is already answered. All of us read the story of Columbus and his discovery of America. It was the imagination that led him to his discovery. His imagination plus faith in a divine power led him on and brought him to victory. The sailors said to Columbus, "What shall we do when all hope is gone?" His reply was, "You shall say at break of day, sail on, and on." Here is the key of prayer. Be faithful to the end, full of faith every step of the way, persisting to the end, knowing in your heart that the end is secure and because you saw the end. Copernicus, through his vivid imagination, revealed how the earth revolved on its axis, causing the old astronomical theories to be cast in the discard. I think it would be a wonderful idea if all of us from time to time recast our ideas, stacked up on our beliefs and opinions, and asked ourselves honestly, why do we believe that? Where did the opinion come from? Perhaps many ideas, theories, beliefs, and opinions that we hold are completely erroneous and were accepted by us as true without any investigation, whatever as to their truth or accuracy. Because our father and grandfather believed in a certain way is no reason why we should. One woman said to me that a certain idea she had must be true because her grandmother believed it. That is absurd. This mind believes in many things that aren't true. What came down from generation to generation is not necessarily valid or the final word and authority. The above-mentioned woman, who was honest and well-meaning, had a mind that was very touchy and psychologically truths. She took everything in the Bible literally. This mind worked by prejudice, superstition, and opposed everything that was not in accord with her established beliefs, opinions, and preconceived notions. Our mind must be like a parachute. The latter opens up. If it doesn't, it isn't any good. Likewise, we must open our eyes and minds to new truths. We must hunger and thirst after new truth and new knowledge, enabling us to soar aloft above our problems on the wings of faith and understanding. The famous biologists, physicists, astronomers, and mathematicians of our day are men gifted with a vivid scientific imagination. For instance, the Einstein theory of relativity existed first in his imagination. Archaeologists and paleontologists studied the tombs of ancient Egypt. Through their imaginative conception, reconstruct ancient scenes. The dead past becomes alive and audible once more. Looking at the ancient ruins and hieroglyphics thereon, the scientists tell us of an age where there was no language, communication was done by grunts, groans, and signs. The scientist's imagination enables him to clothe this ancient temple with roofs, indeed surround them with gardens, pools, and fountains. The fossil remains are clothed with eyes, sinews, and muscles. They again walked and talk. The past becomes the living present. We find actually an imagination that there is no time or space. Through your imaginative faculty, you can be a companion of the most inspired writers of all time. Recently, I gave a lecture to our Sunday audience on the 21st chapter of Revelation in the Wilshire Able Theatre in Los Angeles. The previous night, while I was meditating on the inner meaning of the following verses, I intuitively and actually felt the presence and the intimate companionship of the mystic seer who wrote the inspired verses. John saw the old holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride, adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with him and be their God. Now, can't you walk down the corridor of your own mind to see, inwardly perceive, feel and sense God's river of peace flowing through your mind? You are now in a holy city, your own mind, inhabited by such lovely people as bliss, joy, faith, harmony, love, and goodwill. Your mind is clothed with God's radiant beauty, and your mood is exalted, noble, and godlike. You are married mentally and spiritually to God and to all the things good you have on your wedding garments, because you are in tune with the infinite and God's eternal varieties constantly impregnate your mind. In your imagination, you sense and feel that you are the tabernacle of God. You know that His Holy Spirit saturates and fills every part of your being. Your imagination now becomes seized with the divine frenzy. You become God intoxicated, having received the divine antibody, the presence of God in the chamber of your heart. You can look at the rock. Out of that rock, through divine imagination, you can reveal the Madonna to portray a vision of beauty and a joy forever. Never permit your imagination to be used negatively. Never distort or twist it. It can imagine sickness, accident, and loss to allow yourself to become a mental wreck. To imagine sickness and lack is to destroy your peace of mind, health, and happiness. On board ship, one time I heard a passenger exclaimed when looking at the setting sun, I am so happy, I hope this lasts forever. How often have you seen a glorious sunrise? Perhaps you said, I hope this lasts forever. Nothing in this transitory world lasts eternally. However, the truths of God lasts forever. Darkness follows night, but the morning will come again. Twilight will also come. You do not want things to stand still. You do not want to stand still either, for there are new worlds within and without to conquer. Change eternal is at the root of all life. You don't want to remain in a rut. Problems are life's way of asking you for an answer. The greatest joy and satisfaction is in overcoming, in conquering. Life would become unbearable and unendurable if we did not experience change. We would be bored by the monotony of things. You met with night and day, cold and heat, ebb and flow, summer and winter, hope and despair, success and failure. You find yourself moving through opposites. Through your power to imagine what you wish and to feel its reality subjectively is to reconcile the opposites and bring peace to your mind. In the midst of sorrow, grief, and or the loss of a loved one, your imagination and faith, the two wings of the bird, take you aloft into the very bosom of God, your Father, where you find peace, solace, and divine rest for your soul. In your imagination, you look into the very face or truth of God. Then God wipes away all tears. There shall be no more crying. All the mist or fog of the human mind dissolves in the sunshine of God's love, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. Behold, I make all things new. When the night is black, you see no way out. What that is, when your problem is most accurate, let your imagination be your savior. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. The hills are of an inner range, the presence of God in you. When you seek guidance and inspiration, fix your eyes on the stars of God's truth, such as divine intelligence leads and guides me, or divine wisdom floods my mind, and I am inspired from on high. There is a designer, an architect, and a weaver within you. It takes the fabric of your mind, your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, and molds them into a pattern of life that brings you peace or discord, health or sickness. You can imagine a life that will take you up to the third heaven, where you will see unspeakable and unutterable things of God. Or through the distorted, morbid use of your imagination, you can sink to the depths of degradation. Man is the tabernacle of God. No matter how long a man has sunk, the healing presence is there, waiting to minister to him. It is within us, waiting for us to call upon it. You can use your imagination in all business transactions in a wonderful way. Always imagine yourself in the other fellow's place. This tells you what to do. Imagine that the other is expressing all that you long to see him express. See him as he ought to be, not as he appears to be. Perhaps he is surely sarcastic, bitter, or hostile. There may be many frustrated hopes and tragedies lurking in his mind. Imagine whatsoever things are lovely and of good report, and through your imagination you have covered him with the garment of God. God's world of ideals and God's infinite ideas are within him, waiting to be born and released. You can say, if you wish, God waits to be born in him. You can open the door and kindle the fire of God's love in that man's heart, and perhaps a spark you lit will burst into a divine fire. The greatest and richest galleries of art in the world are the galleries of the mind, devoted to God's truth and beauty. Leonardo da Vinci, through his gift of imagination, meditated on Jesus and the 12 disciples and what they meant. Lost in deep reverie, his imagination secreted the perfect pictures from the infinite reservoir within him. Due to his perfect focus, his inner eye glowed with an interior luminosity, so that he was inspired. Out of his divine imaginary came the masterpiece, the Last Supper. You have visited a quiet lake or a mountain top. Notice how the placid, cool, calm surface reflected the heavenly lights. So does the quiet mind of the spiritual man reflect God's interior lights and wisdom. Picture your ideal in life. Live with this ideal. Let the ideal captivate your imagination. Let the ideal thrill you. You will move in the direction of the ideal that governs your mind. The ideals of life are like the dew of heaven that move over the arid areas of man's mind, refreshing and invigorating him. The inspired writer imagination was fired with truth when he wrote, "There is a river that streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High." By now, you know that imagination is the river enabling you to flow back psychologically to God. The streams and rivulets are your ideas and feelings, plus the emanation of God and love that goes forth from you to all men everywhere. Man looks out into the world and he sees sickness, chaos, and man's inhumanity to man. The man with the disciplined imagination soars above all appearances, discord, apparent evidence to see the sublime principle of harmony. It operates through, in, as also behind all things. He knows through his divine imagery that there is an everlasting law of righteousness behind all things, an ever-abiding peace, a boundless love governing the entire cosmos. These truths surge through the heart. They are born of the eternal truth which through the imagination pierces the outer veil to rest in the divine meaning of the way. It is in God in heaven. Imagination was the workshop of God that inspired the writer of the following matchless spiritual gems, which will go down through the corridor of time and live forever. For tender beauty and for divine imagery, they are unsurpassed in dealing with the availability and an emanation of God's presence. For he shall give his angels charge over thee to keep thee in all thy ways. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost part of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. So that's end of our first chapter. So if you like, do subscribe. So we will meet with the next chapter. Bye bye.